Hello everyone, welcome to our live stream. It has been a hot minute since our last live stream, since our last live video. 7 months to be exact, but it is a new year, which means a new us. And if you're wondering who us is, we are the L&D Academy. We're an online educational platform and space for beginners in the learning and development field. And I'm Irina Ketkin. I'm a consultant in learning and development with over a decade of experience in designing and facilitating soft skills training, management and leadership development programs, all sorts of team building events, coaching, online course creations, and many others. If it's an L&D, at some point in my life, I've done it. So today we are talking about tools that I personally have used to create more engagement in my online sessions. Now, you may have noticed that since March of 2020, things have changed ever so slightly, which meant that we ultimately needed to translate what we used to do in the classroom session. It now needed to happen in the online world. Luckily for us, there are quite a few hardwares and softwares that make this possible. So today, I'm going to talk about 2 hardware and 2 software that I personally have used. I'll show you how I use them, and I'm going to give you the very first few steps that you need to set it up yourselves. Now, some of these tools will be paid, some of these will be free. I promise you, you will find something for all of your needs at some point or in some variation. Now, just before we dive in, I want to let you know that I will aim for this session to be about, I want to say 60 minutes. Probably we're not going to fit into 60 minutes, so I'll try to fit within 90 minutes. But that will largely depend on what kind of questions we get, what kind of interactions we get, which brings me to another very important thing that I want to mention from the start. Now, if you have any questions whatsoever, or you just want to share your personal experiences or some observations that you've made, please use the chat. I will try to answer all of your questions live. If for whatever reason I cannot answer them live, what I'll try and do is come back later and post my response as a comment to the recording of the live stream, which will remain on our channel here on YouTube. With that being said, let's begin. So I am roughly breaking the session into 4 parts. First, I will talk about a hardware called StreamDeck. Then I'll dive deeper into a software called OBS, or Open Broadcast Software. Then I'll show you how I use my iPad, which is another hardware, for more engagement. And finally, we'll wrap up the session with some tips around lights and how important those are for your learner engagement. With that being said, let's dive in. So the very first tool, like I mentioned, that I wanted to show you is called StreamDeck. And this is what it looks like. It's essentially a plastic box, I guess I can say box, with a bunch of different buttons on it. And the beautiful thing is that you can actually program each of these buttons to do something that you want. And I'm going to give you an example. Some of the things that I most often use is when I'm doing Zoom sessions, I have at the tip of my fingers an option to mute myself without going into the Zoom window. I can play some music. I can switch my cameras, which is something that I'll talk about a little bit later on. But one of the things that I use it most often is to send chat messages. And to illustrate what I mean, I'm going to open up a Zoom window. This is the tool that I personally most often use. I don't know about you guys, but this is the one that I most often use, along with Teams. So the same principle will work in Teams or whatever other platform that you use. But let's say that I'm in a training room, in a training session, and I want to quickly send a message to someone in the group or to the whole group. Well, one thing I can do is I can open up the chat to the Zoom window. I can type my message, which, as you can see, takes some time. Not ideal, not optimal. And what this means is that I'm wasting time, precious time that we often don't have from our session. What I have found to be a really, really good alternative to this is essentially this option right here, the StreamDeck, where I have pre-programmed chat messages that I can send with just the press of a button. So let's say that we're doing an exercise. I open up my chat window here in Zoom. I press this button, And voila, my message not just typed itself into the chat window, but it also got sent to everyone on this call. So how cool is that? Another thing that you can do, which I often do, is I send my feedback link. So instead of having it somewhere ready to be copied and pasted, what I do is I have it ready on my StreamDeck. I press a button, I go to my chat, I press this button, and what happens is everyone can now see the feedback link. They can click on it, they can open it, they can respond to it, and all of this happens in real time. So this is a wonderful way to engage your students really quickly, really easily. Another thing which will combine the other tool, the next tool that we'll talk about is OBS. So I'm gonna skip it for the time being, just for a moment. But what you can do is instead of having your camera over here in Zoom, if we close this, let me just make sure, yep, there we go. Here's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna demonstrate this. So I have prepared a timer. And what I'm gonna do is instead of having my camera here on Zoom, I'm actually gonna have a timer. So let's see what this looks like. There we go. So this is the timer. And then this is what my Zoom window will look like. There it is. Ooh, it's a bit of a loop there because I just showed you everything. So instead of my camera, my regular camera, I can show a timer, which could look something like this. So imagine being in a session, doing some sort of an exercise and saying, hey guys, you only have 5 minutes for this next part or for this next activity. Maybe it's some kind of a reflection, self-reflection or self-observation. Or maybe they need to write something very quickly based on something that you've just discussed. I actually had just recently, I did a webinar around goal setting, and we talked about the principles for effective goal sets, goal setting process and what it means to have strategically aligned goals. And I wanted people to put this into practice immediately. And I told them, hey guys, based on everything you just heard, I want you to draft a goal, not write it completely. This is just the first draft. So I'm gonna give you 5 minutes. And then what I did is instead of my camera, I put this 5-minute timer on the screen. So what this tells your participants is that they have exactly 5 minutes. It's not a figure of speech. It's not something that you just say and you go, well, it could be 5, it could be 6 minutes. I love this particularly when it comes to breaks. For longer sessions, online sessions, you guys know that you need to be taking longer breaks more often. So what this essentially allows you to do is instead of saying, right, well, now the time is say 10:30, let's be back at 10:40, and then all of a sudden you have people from all over the world and the time there is completely different. Instead of doing all this calculation, you can just put a timer on the screen through the StreamDeck, and this is how they will see and you will see how much time is left and how much time is remaining until you go back to the session. So this is one use case of how this works. So let me show you, in effect, how you can set it up, how you can use it. So let's switch to a different screen. I'm gonna close down the Zoom window. Allow me just 1 second. It's all by my lonesome self today, and I need to figure all of this out, how to show you everything. Okay, let's go with this. Okay, so the StreamDeck itself comes with this software, or perhaps a slightly different, maybe this will be a better view. There we go. So the StreamDeck comes with its own software. And as you can see, what you have here on the software is the exact same thing that you have here on your StreamDeck. Each of these buttons is programmable, which means that you can make it do something for you. I personally use this every day, specifically when it comes to creating PowerPoint presentations or when it comes to participating in Zoom meetings, but this is not what we're talking about. We're talking about engaging your learners through timers, through things like chat messages, through things that you can easily, very quickly do without losing precious time. So let's see how you can set it up. Again, I'm not gonna give you all the details. If you believe this is something that will work for you, you're welcome to check out. There's so many amazing tutorials, even here on YouTube. So if you want to create the so-called profile. This is what StreamDeck works with. And as you can see, I have a lot of profiles here because every webinar, every training that I do gets its own profile because I have different chat messages that I want to send. But let's say we're creating a new one. Okay, so I'm starting with a brand new one. By default, I have this welcome button here, which if I click on it, just down here below, I will be able to see what exactly this does if I press it. And from what I can see, it essentially will send me to this URL, which is Elgato / welcome to StreamDeck. Elgato is the name of the company that produces this. This is their logo. I'm going to take a look at their website in just a moment. But this is one of the very first things that you're greeted with. Now, if I decide to move it, you see, interestingly enough, I move it here, it jumps over here in my StreamDeck as well. So let's take a look at some of the options that you have. Now, over here on the right-hand side menu is where you will find essentially the functionalities, the things that you can make it do. The system category is where you'll find the most commonly used one. For example, a website. If I want you guys to go to www.the Academy. Oh, there we go. Oh, I cannot spell. See? Academy. Sorry, .com, there we go. Then this is exactly what it's gonna do. Let's say that I press this button now, and voila, I get the L&D Academy's website. The other thing that it can do, I'm gonna skip the hotkey switch for just a moment so I can explain what a hotkey is. A hotkey is StreamDeck's version of a shortcut, okay? So for example, let's say that you don't want to copy and paste, or you don't want to do something else that is easily done through a shortcut. One thing that you can do is actually assign it. So here it is. Let's say that we're going to go with something very simple, like a copy and paste. So let's say that this is, I'm going to name it copy. This is what the name of the button is. And again, just to make sure that you see, this gets updated in real time as you're editing your profile. Now, the other thing I need to do is I need to tell this button what is it exactly that I want it to do. So when I click here, it starts observing my keystrokes. So you probably all know that the shortcut for copy is Control-C or Command-C for Macs. And so I press this on my keyboard, and now it knows that this is what this button does. So if, let's say, I go back to my Zoom window and to my chat, if I want to copy not everything. Maybe I want to copy just this first part of a sentence. Well, I can, of course, press Command-C or Control-C, or I can just press this button right here. Now, let's say that we are even cheekier. Let me move the chat window over here. And I create another hotkey, which is going to be my paste button. I'm going to name it paste. I'm going to give it Control-V, the shortcut. So now that I've copied this text, I can go back to my chat, press this button, paste, and essentially it's going to paste whatever it is that I have copied. Which, I don't know, I mean, for certain things, in certain cases, especially when it comes to an online session where you may be under a lot of pressure, perhaps you only have an hour and you need to go through a lot of content, so you're in a bit of a hurry, this might save you a little bit of time. But it's also very nice for people to see that you're actively engaging with them in chat, that you're not just reading through or asking them to type something in chat and then you're not paying attention to it. So this could be this can be one use case. Now, another thing that you can do, and I'm going to go back to this hotkey switch, is it gives you the opportunity to do two things. So two hotkeys. Let's say that I want to combine copy and paste into one button. So this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to rename it to copy and paste. The first hotkey I'm going to assign it to is going to be my Command-C or Control-C. The second one is going to be my Control-V. So now, if I want to copy this link, I can click on this button once, and then click the same button again, and it's gonna paste it for me. So this is why it's called a switch. Let me press enter so that that's done and sent. What else can we do here? Well, perhaps we can open an application. Let's say that you want to open PowerPoint with just a quick button, or you want to open up your browser. That can be very helpful, especially again in online settings. Instead of going to whatever folder, or you can maybe even open a whole file instead of just an application. So that's one thing that you can also set up. Now, the chat messages that I showed you earlier, this is done through text. So I just drag it over here as a separate button, and this is where I can essentially type whatever message I want my students to receive. The interesting thing about the text functionality is that it also allows you to press enter. So you know that when we type into the chat, especially on Zoom, but again, it's true for all the other chat applications on these video platforms, when we type something, we need to hit enter for that message to be sent, which means that I can do this automatically with just, again, press of a button. So let's say that my message is test message. There we go. Oh, message. Apologies. So I press enter, and now what's going to happen is I come over here to the chat, I press this button, and there we go. This message is not just typed into the chat, but it's also sent because I told StreamDeck to also hit enter once it's been typed in. So that is something very useful. And finally, the last functionality I'm going to show you is this multimedia. It allows you to control your multimedia. You can play the previous track, the play or pause or next track. Basically, you can make it do whatever you want as long as it's related to multimedia. The most oftenly used case scenario that at least that I use is I would have some kind of a chill music, jazzy music play in the background while people are joining, or when I give them time to think, or when they are in breakout rooms so there's no silence. What I would do is I'll have this music ready, and when it's time, I would just hit here play, and it would play for me. So that's one thing that you can do on Macs. I haven't tested this on Windows, but on Macs, this play functionality works even if it's on a website like YouTube. So it will work on your web browser, it will work on your music application. Again, I cannot vouch for Windows. It's very rarely that I work with Windows machines, but let me know in chat if you've ever tried it, if you've tested this tool. Let me know if that works. The other thing that I just wanted to mention is that a lot of the programs that you work with, including Zoom, including PowerPoint, have their own predefined hotkeys. So if I go to PowerPoint, for example, it already has given me a bunch of buttons that I can create. For example, oh, I want to go to the last slide. There we go. I have my last slide over here. Or I want to go to my first slide. Again, I have this as a button, and both of these appear in my StreamDeck. So this is something very useful, something that I personally have used tons of times. Every single session that I deliver, I make sure that I have my timers, which is something I'll show you how to do in just a moment. I make sure that I have my chat messages. I make sure that I have all of my multimedia that I want played in the background, be that music, be that maybe some kind of a video clip that I want them to play. This is also something that I can set up in advance. And then when the time comes, I don't have to think about it. Oh, I have to load this presentation, or I have to load that video. I can just press a button, and it saves me tons of time. It saves me tons of stress. Again, online sessions can be stressful, and so if there is a tool that helps me, this is it, the StreamDeck. Like I mentioned, I do use it for many other things in my day-to-day. So if you're curious how I use that, let me know in the comments below, and perhaps we'll try to do another video about everything that I use the StreamDeck for. But for the time being, let's just stay focused on engaging tools. With that being said, I'm going to take a very short pause and see if you guys have any questions or anything that perhaps you feel that you can use the StreamDeck for. Is there something you believe that could work for you? Maybe some sort of a button that would save you tons of time, or maybe I don't know. I don't know what could this be used for? Very curious to hear your perspective on this. So let's see. Do we have anyone willing to share in chat? Oh, Marie Jo, thank you so much for letting me know that everything works. I really appreciate that. While I do that, I'm going to do two things. I'm going to set up for the next tool, and I'm going to use my computer, my other computer for it. And I'm also going to take a sip of my coffee. There used to be a logo of, a catchphrase of a famous brand that the world runs on the name of the brand. Well, I run on coffee. I don't run on that particular brand, but I do run on coffee. All right, I'm not seeing any chat messages for this. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna just move on because we do have a lot of things that I wanna share with you. So let's move on. As I said, the next tool that I wanna show you is OBS, which is the open broadcast software. Now, to set it up, I just want to remind you, and I know that you've seen on the news how they have all these graphics, or if they're bringing in multiple people for an interview, you see maybe two cameras up on the screen, plus something else like a rolling text down here below, and then another graphic over here on the side, and then the name of the channel over here. Well, all of this is accomplished through something called a broadcasting system. It doesn't have to be this one in particular that I'm going to show you, but it's one of those is probably one of the more popular ones. And the best part is that it is free. Speaking of which, I did promise that I was going to show you the website for Elgato. So let me do that. Let's see. There we go. They produce, by the way, a lot of things, a lot of equipment for streamers, which is why this is called the StreamDeck, and they come in different sizes. So you have the StreamDeck XL, which is the largest one, and I think it has 40 buttons. I could be wrong. You have something similar to mine. So my StreamDeck is kind of the older version, and from what I can tell, they don't sell it anymore. So they have the StreamDeck version 2, I suppose, but it's the same thing, 15 buttons, and you can program them any way that you like. We also have the StreamDeck Mini, which just has 6 buttons. They just recently released something called StreamDeck Plus. I personally haven't had a chance to play around with it. I have seen a couple of reviews, so I still have some mixed feelings about that. We'll see how that works out. Oops, sorry. Another thing they have is something called the StreamDeck Pedal, which is something you place underneath your desk. It acts just like a StreamDeck, but it does only have 3 buttons. I suppose some people find use for it. They also have the StreamDeck Mobile, and this is important. This is the reason why I wanted to show you the website, because in case you want to give it a try, their mobile app, I think it comes with some kind of a free trial. I don't remember exactly how many days, but they did have a free trial. So if you want to give it a try, this would be a good start for it. And then over here, you can obviously download their software. In different countries, the prices are different. If you're going for something like my StreamDeck, the one that I just showed you, the retail price seems to be $150 US dollars. Again, check the prices in your local, I guess, IT stores. And again, this is the newer version. Mine, as you saw, is not as colorful as this, but again, this is one of those tools that I use every day, not just for engaging sessions, but also for really everyday stuff. It's really helpful. It really saves me a lot of time, and I can't imagine my life without it. I'm gonna be probably a little dramatic over this. So the other thing that I wanted to show you, the one I started showing you, was called OBS. So I'm going to go back to Zoom here for just a moment, because I have my other laptop here, and it's set up right now to show my camera and a little graphic over here on this side. And this is easily accomplished with the OBS software, as I mentioned. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to share I'm gonna share essentially what OBS looks like, and this is exactly what it looks like. So let me get rid of this. So OBS is, as I said, the open broadcast software. It's a free program. It's something that you can, let me just do this because it's very distracting seeing me probably twice. It's an open software. It's a free software. They have a version for Macs. They have versions for Windows. You can download it from the internet, and it's one of the most widely used softwares for streaming and for honestly even meetings. So we're not streamers. We're hopefully all L&D practitioners here watching this live or watching the recording, and we know that sometimes we just want to make things a little more interesting, and this is where OBS can come in, because it can allow us to make our camera, the one we use in Zoom or the one we use in Teams, a little bit more interesting. And yes, one option is having this little company logo, which is my company's Learning Adventures, my consulting company logo here in the camera as well, but it can be even more complicated with something like a timer. I showed you the timer earlier, but this is what it can look like. You can tell people, oh, you guys have 5 minutes, so now I'm putting on this timer, and you, oh, sorry, it's this way. So now you can work on your assignment. You can just easily look up. And again, this is how this will look like in Zoom. If we are, I'm just going to share my screen over here. See, this is something I'm using, something called a virtual camera. I'll show you how this works. And this is essentially what your learners will see. They'll not just see your camera, they'll not just see a video of you, but they will also see a timer. And I personally believe that this is one of the best tools to engage your learners. When you say 5 minutes and then you put on a timer, they know you mean business. But there are probably other use case scenarios where you can use this. So again, let me know in the comments or let me know in chat. So how does the OBS software work, or how does OBS work? Essentially, you have a screen split into two. On the upper part is where you set up, where you can preview whatever it is that you're setting up in your something called scenes. And these are over here. So a scene is a collection of all the graphics, all the cameras, all the screens that you're sharing, anything that you want to be displayed at one single time. That is the scene. Right now I have a blank screen and I'm going to show you how you can populate it. So one thing that I need to add is sources. So I'm going to come over here to the sources and I'm going to click on the plus sign. And you know what, guys, I'm going to make the screen a little bit larger so you can see. So I'm going to come over here and I have all of these different options, but the one I'm looking for is a video capture device. Now I can call it something, or I can use an existing one, or I can just leave the name as is, which is exactly what I am going to do now. I'm going to click OK, and then it allows me to select from a drop-down menu the types of cameras that I have attached to my system. Right now, because I'm using my laptop, it only has my FaceTime HD camera. So this is what I'm going to select. It gives me a bit of a preview. I can select the quality, and I'm going to go for the highest quality here. And I am going to click OK. So now my scene has a little bit of my camera. Obviously, this doesn't look great. This doesn't look too good. So what I want to do is increase the size of my camera. And I can just do this by essentially resizing it the way you would resize any other shape. So great, now you have a camera. You could have done that very easily with Zoom by turning on your camera, but OBS allows you to do so much more. So let's see what else you can do. Well, let's say that I want to add a nice graphic, a nice image, not a moving one, just a static image. So I'm going to go to the plus sign again, and I'm going to go to image. I'm not going to change the name. I'm going to leave it as image 2 for the time being. It's going to ask me to select where this is, and I have prepared a couple of overlays on my desktop. So one of these graphics is this. Gives me a preview. I like it. Click OK. And now I have this image, but where is my camera? Well, very simply, I just need to drag it to the bottom. So it needs to be below, and now it's hidden. So what I can do is I can resize my camera and move it over here. Now, as you can see, this is not ideal because my image has this white border still visible. This is not great. This is, again, not optimal. So what can we do? Well, I'm going to add another, apologies. I'm going to add another image, one that is a PNG, which has a couple of things missing, a couple of the image missing. So this is what I'm going to select. It's going to give me a preview again. And now we see I have two black squares there. I'm going to hide the first image. Oh, but now I'm not seeing the full image. It's sort of all over the place, and I'm kind of all over the place. So one thing I can do is I'm going to click on Command F or Control F, and that's going to snap the image to the size of my scene. So now I have this little square, and then this much larger square. So now I naturally need to resize my camera. I'm gonna do just that. Holding the Option key, I can resize it even further. So that's what that looks like. And then I have this, which is an empty area, and I personally feel like it's perfect for me to share my screen. So once again, I'm gonna go to my sources. I'm gonna click on Display Capture. And again, I'm not going to change the default name. I'm going to leave it as is because this is my laptop. It only allows me to share my desktop. So now, let me click that again. It's going to fit it to the screen. I'm going to move it just behind the image. There we go. Resize it a little bit. So now I have a camera plus my screen over here on this side of my camera. So if I turn on the start virtual camera, this is a feature in OBS. What's going to happen is we'll essentially be allowed to show everything that you see here in your scene instead of your camera. Okay, so this is what it will look like. So if I go back to just my just my video. Oh, it got too complicated, I think, for my system, so it's not gonna let me do that right now because, yeah, apologies, my laptop today does not want to work with me. But either way, this is essentially what OBS would look like. This is how you can set it up. Now, like I mentioned, the most often used case scenario from my perspective when it comes to engaging online sessions is having that timer. But you can also have your logo, your company logo, or some kind of a graphic. Recently, just last year in, I believe we finished in November, we did this prolonged leadership development program, and what I was asked to have was this graphic of the leadership development program logo, which was developed specifically for this program. So I had it on my screen here along with my camera. So this is what OBS can be used for. So again, I'm gonna take a very quick sip of my coffee and see if you guys have any questions. And if not, I'm just gonna move on. This is now the time where normally in an online session, I would play some music. But alas, I am not prepared right now to play some music for you. So you'll have to bear with me. Okay, I don't see any questions at this point in time, so I think I am going to just move on. And what I'm moving on to is the second piece of hardware that I want to share with you, and that is my iPad. I'm sharing the screen of my iPad right now, and here's the thing. I bought this iPad because it wasn't actually related to work. It had nothing to do with work, but it turned out to be so useful and so great and so helpful. And I can't wait to share with you all the possible ways in which you can use it. One thing I'm just gonna very briefly give you almost as an example is, let's say, oops, there we go. I'm just gonna turn it sideways so it's easier for me to write. One of the use case scenarios is whenever you are explaining a concept or a more complicated process or something that perhaps takes a little bit more time to explain. Well, one thing is to draw it out, to kind of explain it visually. And just to give you an example, let's say that you and I are talking about possibly doing a 360-degree feedback. And so a very good question to start that conversation would be, what exactly is a 360? And I tell you, excellent question, well done. Let me walk you through it. So imagine that this is you. Well, this is an ugly version of you. Well, let's say that's better. So imagine that you decide on a bunch of different competencies that are important to you. Maybe you're curious about your time management or your creativity or perhaps your leadership abilities. And so you kind of pick those competencies and then you go ahead and what you do is you rate each of those on a scale from 1 to 5. And for example, you could say, oh, for creativity, I give myself a 4 out of 5. And then for time management, I give myself 5 out of 5. And that's all wonderful. But the question then is, compared to what? And so this is where the 360-degree element comes in. Because what we will do then is I'm going to go to your manager and I'm going to ask them to rate you as well. I'm going to go to your peers and I'm going to ask them to rate you as well. I'm going to go to your colleagues and ask them to rate you as well on the exact same competencies. And then let me just move this a little bit higher. And then if you are a manager, I'm going to go to your team and ask them to rate you as well. So essentially what we're creating is a 360-degree view of what your competencies or how your competencies are perceived by those around you. And so this is what a 360-degree feedback would be. That will produce a report where we will then discuss what are your strengths, what are some potential development areas, and based on all of this, we will then create an action plan, a personal development plan. So this is a very simple example of how you can use your iPad with your pencil, where you would walk someone through it, through a process, through some kind of a procedure or maybe a model, a framework, and simply visualize it. And again, before you tell me, oh, but I can't draw, as you can see, neither can I. But as long as you can draw some basic shapes like a circle, there we go, and the software just made that perfect for me. A square, and again, the software did that perfectly for me. Triangle, well, not this time, I guess, and a line. That's all you need, because these 4 shapes can essentially draw and can be used to illustrate everything that you could possibly think about. So if you want to draw a person, let's say you start with their head. And there you have a person. Maybe this person is waving. Oh, sorry. I said waving. I don't know what that was. Or maybe they are kind of giving you a bit of an attitude. Or maybe they're looking this way and they're telling you, don't talk to me, I don't want to talk to you. So you see, essentially with a few very simple strokes, you can engage your learners in the process of the explanation. And what's more is, and this is important to remember, our brain thinks in pictures, our brain thinks in images. And so when you create this image in front of them, it's so much easier for them to then retain this knowledge and to understand more complex processes more easily. I just saw Rhea's comment, or you could sync, and I'm gonna totally pretend to ignore it, although I just didn't. But yeah, essentially this is what you can use your iPad for. Now, the 4 apps that I'm gonna very briefly mention, I'm not gonna go into too much detail, are Whiteboard, which is an app developed by Microsoft. You have Procreate, which is the #1 app for iPads for drawing. Goodnotes, which is probably the #1 app for taking notes. And then something that was released, very, very recently, and that is Freeform. This is the last app that I'm going to show you here. And this one is something that was developed by Apple. It became available in the last update, I think, for the Mac OS. So we're going to take a look at each of those very, very briefly. Let's start with Whiteboard. Whiteboard, like I said, is a Microsoft app. It essentially gives you 3 predefined pens over here at the top where you can change the thickness, you can change the color, and you can draw. One thing that I really love is they have these sort of rainbow pens. This is what they create, the kind of effect that they create. I don't know why you would need it, but you can do that. They also have some highlights. And again, you can change the color of those highlights. You can have, like I said, 3 predefined pens. So let's say that I made a mistake. So what I can do is I can go to the eraser and I can select either partial stroke or entire stroke. So a partial stroke is wherever I move my pencil, this is what it's going to erase. And if I select entire stroke, then it's going to erase the entire stroke. So there we go, and I can go back and do mistake. Excellent. One thing that I really love about this is they have the ruler tool, which is a virtual tool that ruler that you can use to draw lines. So if you are worried about how precise you are, no need, because now they have the ruler and you can draw perfect strokes, perfect lines. And finally, they also have the select tool, which allows you to select something in particular. You can duplicate it or copy it or delete it altogether. The other things that you can do in Whiteboard, just very briefly, you can add notes, text, shapes, reactions, which I think are very, very cute. I mean, look at this. How cute is this? The other thing you can do is add images. And finally, and I think this is probably the one that might be of most interest to you, they have different templates. For example, let's take a look at the learning templates. They have 5 Whys and H brainstorm, compare and contrast, exit ticket, 4 corners, glows and grows, KWL. I'm going to be very honest with you. I don't know what that is. Kanban, lesson plan, lesson reflection, narrative planning, persuasive planning. Oh my God, there's so many. You know what? I am very curious about this KWL. Oh, interesting. So I just added it as a template. So it asks you what you know, what you want to know, and what you want to learn. I'm a bit confused about the difference between the second and the third, but there you have it. It's a very simple template that you can then use, and I can sort of, nope. Why is this doing? I can't pinch it. Okay, but I can type my answer. I can write it here on top of these Post-it notes and then add more if I want to. So that's one use case. So Whiteboard, I really like it. It's very simple. One thing that I am not a huge fan of is the fact that it's not very stable. It crashes. I had a case where I went to this conference in November. I wanted to start taking notes using Whiteboard. It just crashed on me a couple of times, and then I just gave up and I went back to Goodnotes, which is what I normally use. But again, you can use this in trainings. You can use this instead of showing PowerPoint slides, which I am a huge fan of. Anytime we can substitute PowerPoint, we should. Very quickly, Procreate. I'm going to show it to you without going into too much detail, simply because, again, like I said, it's an app for drawing, but it does allow you to select a brush. I usually go with a studio pen, and then it allows you, I went too far. It allows you to type with it. I can change the size of this. I can change the opacity. I can make it I can make it 100% opacity. I can change the color. But again, it's not a note-taking app. It's good for drawing. So if you are an artist, then definitely use this. The canvas is somewhat limiting. As you can see, I've done some exercises here trying to walk through disc, or perhaps the Myers-Briggs type indicator, or even another illustration of how the 360-degree feedback works. And again, it has its ups and downs. All the artists on YouTube, at least based on YouTube, kind of swear by Procreate. I have tried painting with it as well. I think it's a really good app. If you have nothing else, if you've purchased this because you want to draw and you have no other option, then this is as good as any. With that being said, let's now turn our attention to the one that is potentially the most popular, and that is Goodnotes. So Goodnotes, as you can see, I use it quite a lot. It allows me to draw. It allows me to do a bunch of different things. So let's just go back to this document that we were working on. Again, I can erase certain things, like a stroke. Maybe I don't like the way this hand was drawn. I can zoom in. I can draw it a little bit better. I said a little bit, not a lot. I can also highlight certain things, change the size of that. I can draw shapes. And that's how we have, oh, I was going to say a perfect square, and then it did this. Sorry about that. I can select it and then hide the shame by deleting it, or I can select it and resize it. Perhaps I drew it too big, so I want to put it inside the square, so I can do that. It has a bunch of stickers that you can use. You can import images, and I'm going to show you a scenario where I actually use that. You can, of course, type notes. I am not the best handwriter when it comes to Goodnotes, so you will have to excuse kind of all of that. But here's a use case where we did a train the trainer session just recently. We ended up with the topic talking about how do you evaluate the impact of learning. And we said that there are essentially these 7 metrics that you need to pay attention to. And these are reactions, knowledge, skills, attitude, application results, and ROI, or return on investment. And so instead of me walking them through all the possible options, we actually turned this into a discussion. And I asked, okay, so let's start with reaction. What are the options there? Like, how can you measure this? And they said, oh, well, we have the satisfaction survey. And this is usually done on the last day of this onboarding training. And the sort of things that we need to ensure that are included in terms of questions in that survey are things around overall satisfaction, the trainer capabilities, the content, how did they like the content, and of course, the mandatory open-ended questions. So another thing, we moved on, knowledge. Well, how do you measure your knowledge, or how do you measure the knowledge gained from that training? And they were like, oh, well, we have these knowledge tests, but we can also introduce some quizzes, and on and on and on. And so we essentially created this together. It wasn't me telling them. It wasn't me showing them a PowerPoint. It was us co-creating this content, co-creating this learning. And I think this is, at the end of the day, what really matters to adult learners. And we've talked about adult learning principles in the past. If you don't know where they are, we have an amazing video in our YouTube channel. Go check it out, the adult learning principles. But one of those adult learning principles is that people want to choose how they learn. They want to have this freedom. And so when you create, when you co-create, if you will, this is when you truly experience that freedom. So this is a use case. Another one that, again, this goes more to how I use it personally. This conference that I mentioned, I couldn't take my notes there, so I took my notes in Goodnotes. I'm starting now to work. I didn't start, sorry. I started working on a new course for our Udemy lineup, which is around feedback, the art and science of feedback. So I use Goodnotes to kind of brainstorm, to put a bit of a structure to it. And this is, well, part of what that looks like. So yeah, there are a lot of wonderful use cases of how you can use the iPad. Again, Zoom offers you this option to share, instead of sharing your desktop, instead of sharing your screen, you can actually share your iPad either wirelessly or with a wire. But if you have that opportunity, if you have that option, even if you have an Android, if you don't have an iPad, but you have an Android-based tablet, personally, I definitely recommend you trying to use it and utilize it, because this just brings a whole other dimension to the learning experience. And that's why we're all here today. With that being said, very quickly, Freeform, I do want to mention it because it just released. I personally haven't had an opportunity to try it out in a real life situation just yet. But one thing that I really love about this, and again, it's a fairly standard note-taking app. You have your pens, you have your pencils, you have your crayons, which for some reason are part of this tool. They give you this opportunity to draw and fill in immediately with a certain color, a shape or whatever that is. Again, you can delete and you can select and resize it and make it smaller, bigger, whatever. So again, fairly simple. Once again, you can take photos and import them here. You can draw shapes, you can type text, so nothing out of the ordinary. One thing though that I did test and I was really, really impressed, and again, this is only available on iPads and Macs, so to all your Windows users, I'm really sorry. I don't think that this part is going to be useful, so I'm not going to focus too much on it. But one thing that I was very impressed with was the fact that this works seamlessly between your iPad, your iPhone, and your Mac machine, which means that whatever I draw here, oh, I'm not drawing, whatever I draw here is going to immediately appear on my screen on my Mac. Which can be very, very helpful for online situations. If, for example, you cannot, for whatever reason, make your iPad work with Zoom, you can just share your screen, and that is going to reflect everything that you're drawing on your iPad. With that being said, again, I'm not going to talk too much about Freeform because, again, I haven't used it. So one thing that I did test was this connectivity between the different devices, specifically in the Mac, what is it, multiverse, universe, whatever it is. So anyways, again, I'm going to take a very quick sip of coffee and I'm going to delete all of this because we are left with just one more topic. But first, double checking if we have any questions. I could sing, Rhea, Rhea, how could you? How could you? I used to sing way back in the day. I don't do that anymore. Oh, Mac ecosystem. Thank you. That's what it's called. The Mac ecosystem. I keep forgetting. Not that it's that important. Thank you, Dan. I appreciate that. Okay, so here's what we're going to talk about last. Specifically, lights. Because this is the second piece of hardware that I want to talk about. It is so, so important. Oh, sorry, I just received a chat. Hi, I started an internship in L&D for a big hotel company. Any tips? Thanks. Ooh, gosh, that is a good question. So many things come to mind. To be fair with you, I don't even know where to start, but I know where to start. one of the very first things that you want to do, regardless of what your role in L&D is, for the first time, once you enter the field, is you want to get to know who the key players are. You want to understand who your stakeholders are. You want to understand what is it that they can do for you and how you can help them. What is it that you can do for them? So the very first thing you want to do is go out there, meet as many people as possible, and try and understand how the business works. And that leads me to the second point, which is try to understand what the business does. Make sure that you're very, very clear on what is the strategy, what is the mission, what is the vision of the company. You want to understand it as much as possible. So these are 2 tips that I can give you immediately. If you tell me more, I can probably give you more information, but I hope that this has been helpful. Romeo, good luck and congratulations on starting this internship. I'm very excited for you. I mean, in all fairness, I am very biased when it comes to L&D. So anytime someone tells me, oh, I'm going into L&D, I get very, very excited. That means that our numbers are growing, so to speak. It's not like we're going to war. We're not building an army. But I just love the fact that more and more people are finding, oh, this is going to sound so cheesy, are finding happiness in L&D. All right, so let's go back to the last topic of our session today. I told you we're not going to fit into 60 minutes. I apologize for that, but it is what it is. I made a promise. So lights. Specifically, I want to talk about how can you set up your lights so that you look more professional, so that you look like you know what you're doing, because trust me, it makes an impression. So I'm going to use actually Freeform. This is going to be the first time I'm going to use it. So let's see, I'm going to use the crayons. I don't know why I'm very excited about the crayons. None of the other tools have crayons. And I haven't drawn with crayons, I guess, since I was 6. So I'm going to go with the crayons. Okay, so let's say that this is you, okay? And you're sitting in front of your computer. Oh, I don't know why this is your computer. If this is your computer, please change it. And then on top of your computer, you have perhaps a very simple webcam. It doesn't have to be anything super complicated. It doesn't have to be like the latest DSLR or mirrorless camera. It doesn't have to be the most expensive webcam out there, and they can get very expensive. You can easily use what's already available, like your camera, like the camera on your phone. Again, there are so many options out there. Again, I'm not going to go into it because there's too much. Oh, Romeo, thank you. It was very insightful. I'm looking forward to this internship. Well, so am I. I really wish you good luck. I'm sure you're going to do great. So, okay, you're sitting in front of your computer, and what most people do is they buy one of those really popular ring lights that are popular on TikTok and on most content creators, right? The ring with a light and has a tripod, and they put it just in front of them. What happens in this case is, and I'm actually going to demonstrate this with one of these lights. Let me just, I'm a perfectionist, so you're going to have to give me a second. I want to set it up correctly just so that you can imagine what that looks like. So I have just this square camera, but it's going to do the exact same thing. So let's say that I put it right in front of me. Well, the very first thing you're going to notice is that it spills the light evenly all over my face. It's a very flat image. It doesn't give me any contrast. There are no shadows. My nose looks flat. My cheeks look flat. My forehead looks flat. So it's all very, very flat. Now, this, please, if you have a ring camera, please, 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 never put it right in front of you. It's not a flattering look. What you want to do instead is move that light to 45 degrees, either to your left or to your right. It doesn't matter. You will have to apologize. I have to apologize for my drawing skills. Today I'm having I'm having a moment. Let's go with this as, as a ring light. It doesn't have to be a ring light. It can be any sort of light as long as it has this matte white finish in front of it, because this is what creates the so-called soft light. Now, what you can probably notice on my face, and I'm gonna remove my glasses for just a moment.
I'm not sure I understand.
Oops, sorry. If I place my finger on my nose, this creates a shadow, but it's not a hard shadow. Actually, let me do it like this. Okay, there it is. It's not a very hard shadow, right? It's kind of softish. It's you can see it's there, but it's like not very prominent. And the same thing for my nose, it's not very prominent, the shadow it creates on my face. So this is essentially what you want to do with something called a soft light. And the ring lights, by the way, are really good for that because they come with this matte finish on top. So it creates this soft light. I don't have any hard lights to show you, so I can't demonstrate this, but you will notice it immediately. Once you have a hard light, the shadow is the exact same shape as whatever is in front of that light. So going back to this, you want to put your soft light. Let me do this properly. Your soft light. You want to put it to around 45 degrees to either your left or your right. My light right now is to my left. And that is called key light. And what it's going to do is going to shine sort of like this on you. And it's going to create this really bright side on one side of your face and your body. But here's what you need to remember. Once you create light on one side of your face and your body, this means your other side remains dark. And in certain cases, that may be okay. You may want to keep it darker. You may not even have the equipment to, keep it light. But sometimes it can be too dark. Like right now, it gets dark a lot sooner in the day. Most of my sessions usually start around this time because I work with a lot of people in North America, so a lot of my sessions start right now and it's already dark here, which means I need to bring in more light. And this is where I would normally have either a smaller light, literally could be just one of these guys. They also come in different sizes. It could be one of these guys, a small tube. But I want it to be, again, let's remember, it needs to be soft. But what I wanted to do is essentially light up the other side of my face ever so slightly. This is why this is called a key light, and this is not called a key light. You have to forgive me right now, the name escapes me, but if you don't have a light, another thing you can very easily do is put a white piece of sheet right on the opposite side of your key light, because that will allow you to bounce some of that light. So what will happen is this light will bounce off of they're called reflectors, or your sheet, and it's gonna light up this side of your face. And I have this, and now let me just illustrate it. Let me turn off this light. And so now you see that this side is a lot darker. I don't like how dark it is. I really don't. So I have a reflector, and against that reflector, I have another light. So I can shine it directly on me, but that's too bright. What I do instead is I have quite literally one of these guys, and I have placed it against, and it shines against my reflector. So it bounces the light off, and now it covers, it's still darker. It still creates a contrast, but it's bouncing the light off. Now, you can stop there. That's perfectly fine. If you want to, however, take it to the next step, there is one more thing that you can do. And this is to put a rim light. Let me put it in blue rather. There we go. So this could be a very simple, again, very small, accented, if you will, light that shines, and it's directly usually diagonally opposed to your key light. And what this will create is this very soft, very, very barely visible light on the edge of your body. And let me just show you. You see this? You can barely see it. You can barely see it. But what it does is it creates a contrast. It separates me from my background. And so you know that, yes, this is a real background. I can touch it, but there is some distance between that background and me. And essentially what you want to do with good video, and that's a whole other topic that we can probably talk another hour, but I'm not, I promise you. We're just gonna talk about lights. So this rim light essentially creates the separation between me and my background. Again, you don't need to go with something as complicated as this. It doesn't have to be that big. But what you absolutely need to have is, at the very least, you need to have a key light. You can perhaps skip the one to the side of you. You can skip the rim light, but the key is important. This is the most important light that you need to have. Now, you don't have to go out there and buy these super expensive lights. One very simple trick that you can do is just use whatever light you already have and put a nice piece of fabric in front of it, just so that it creates this softer glow and it casts this softer light on your face. Okay. Again, we can talk a lot about lights. I have been doing a lot of research into lights, and I've been doing a lot of sort of experiments, if you will, with it. It can get, because now it's a hobby of mine, it can get very expensive, so I don't necessarily recommend you follow in my footsteps. But if you want, you can easily use something as small as this or something as small as this. Both of these have been produced by a company called Ulanzi. I hope I'm pronouncing their name correctly. Same here. Ulanzi, there we go. Oh, will my camera focus? No, it's not going to focus. That's fine. I'm not going to torture it. They're relatively cheap alternatives to large, big, soft boxes, as they're called, or lights or permanent lights. So again, you don't have to do any of that. You can easily just use whatever light you already have and just put a bit of fabric in front of it so that it doesn't cast a very hard shadow. With that being said, I'm going to take a sip of coffee. I'm not going to sing, but I'm gonna wait to see if you guys have any questions for me that I can answer. Be that about lights, about any of the tools that we talked about, or maybe something else entirely, like Romeo did and asked me about his internship, which, again, I am very happy for you. Congratulations. Oh, by the way, I'm going to take this opportunity to say that everyone who joins our live stream gets an amazing deal of 10% off of our really amazing, and I know that I am biased, but I'm going to say it. It's a really amazing online course called Introduction to Learning and Development. If you want to take advantage of it, simply use the promo code LIVESTREAM in the checkout page. If you want to learn more about the course, feel free to check out our website, thelndacademy.com. We always love meeting new friends, so go check us out. We have tons of resources, free and paid. We have an amazing blog. So yeah, go check us out. We really love L&D. We really try to help everyone who is sort of in the beginning of their L&D career. So go check us out. All right, I'm not seeing any more questions, but I think that brings us very nicely to the end of our session today. I really appreciate you logging in and watching me live. And if you ended up here after the recording, thank you for watching until the very end. I wish you guys an amazing rest of your day wherever you may be around the world. If you have any questions, feel free to post them in the comments. The recording will stay on our Academy channel. I really appreciate you. I appreciate your time, and I hope that I will see you again soon.